I felt the cold metal against my ribs before I saw his face. One moment, I was reaching for a champagne flute from the tray, and the next, there was a gun pressed into my side, hidden perfectly by the crush of bodies around us. His breath was warm against my ear when he leaned in close, so close that anyone watching would think we were lovers sharing a secret. "You're mine now, principessa," he whispered, and my entire world tilted on its axis. "Let me take you back to the beginning, to how a girl like me ended up in the crosshairs of the most dangerous man in New York City. My name is Isabella, and 3 months ago, I was nobody, just another art history graduate working at a small gallery in Soho, spending my days cataloging paintings and my nights eating takeout alone in my studio apartment. I had dreams, sure, but they were small dreams, safe dreams, the kind that don't get you killed. Everything changed the night of the Venetian ball. It was the charity event of the season, held at the Castellano estate, a sprawling mansion on the Upper East Side that looked like it had been transported stone by stone from Renaissance Italy. My boss had gotten food poisoning, and somehow I ended up with her invitation. I should have said no. I should have stayed home. But I didn't, because for once in my careful, ordinary life, I wanted to feel special. I wanted to wear a beautiful dress and pretend, just for one night, that I belonged in that glittering world. The moment I walked through those doors, I felt like I'd stepped into a dream. Crystal chandeliers hung from frescoed ceilings. Champagne flowed like water, and everyone looked like they'd stepped out of the pages of a magazine. The women wore gowns that cost more than my yearly rent, and the men moved with the kind of confidence that comes from never having to worry about anything as mundane as money. I tried to blend in, but I was a sparrow among peacocks, and I knew it. That's when I first saw him, Dante Salvator. He was standing near the grand staircase, surrounded by men in expensive suits who hung on his every word. Even from across the room, he commanded attention. Tall, dark-haired, with the kind of face that belonged on Roman coins. Sharp jaw, strong nose, and eyes so dark they looked black in the candlelight. He wore his tuxedo like armor, and there was something in the way he held himself that made my pulse quicken. Dangerous. That was the word that came to mind. This man was dangerous. I told myself to look away, to grab a drink, and find someone safe to talk to, but I couldn't. It was like he exerted some kind of gravitational pull, and I was caught in his orbit. And then, as if he could feel me watching, his eyes found mine across the crowded ballroom. The impact of that gaze was physical. It pinned me in place, made my breath catch in my throat. He didn't smile, didn't nod, just looked at me with an intensity that made me feel naked despite my floor-length gown. I broke eye contact first, my cheeks burning, and fled toward the gallery where they were auctioning off art pieces for charity. I spent the next hour pretending to be fascinated by oil paintings and sculptures, trying to calm my racing heart. It It was ridiculous, this reaction to a stranger. I didn't even know who he was, but something about him had awakened something in me, something primal and frightening. The gallery led out to a terrace overlooking the estate's gardens, and I stepped outside for some air. The November night was cold, and I wrapped my arms around myself, grateful for the chill. It cleared my head, reminded me that I was just Isabella Chen, gallery assistant, and I had no business feeling things about men who looked like they could buy and sell me without blinking. That's where he found me. I didn't hear him approach, but suddenly he was there beside me, leaning against the stone balustrade like he owned it, which I would later learn he practically did. Everything in New York he owned a piece of. Cold out here, he said, his voice low and rough, with just a hint of an Italian accent underneath. His jacket appeared in my hands before I could respond, warm and smelling of cedar and something darker, something that made my head swim. I should have refused it, should have made some excuse and gone back inside. But I didn't. I pulled his jacket around my shoulders and tried to ignore how intimate the gesture felt. "Thank you," I managed, not looking at him. He moved closer, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body. "You don't belong here," he said, and it should have been insulting. But somehow it wasn't. It was just an observation, stated in that matter-of-fact way of his. "I know," I admitted, surprising myself with my honesty. Something about him made me want to drop all pretense. My boss was supposed to come. She got sick. "Lucky for me," he said, and when I finally looked at him, he was smiling. It transformed his face, softened those harsh lines into something breathtaking. "What's your name, Bella?" I told him. He repeated it slowly, like he was tasting it, rolling it around on his tongue. "Isabella. It suits you. I'm Dante." We talked for an hour on that terrace, about art and New York, and nothing important at all. He was charming, attentive, asking questions like my answers actually mattered to him. I forgot to be nervous, forgot that he was clearly wealthy and powerful, and completely out of my league. For that hour, we were just two people, drawn together by something neither of us quite understood. When he finally walked me back inside, he kept his hand on the small of my back, a possessive gesture that should have annoyed me, but instead sent shivers up my spine. He introduced me to people whose names I recognized from the news, always keeping me close, always making sure I felt included. I floated through the rest of the evening in a daze, wondering if this was real, or if I would wake up back in my tiny apartment to discover it had all been a dream. Before I left, he took my hand and pressed something into it, his card, heavy and expensive. "Call me," he said, and it wasn't a request. It was a command, spoken softly, but with absolute certainty that I would obey. I should have thrown that card away, should have recognized the warning signs for what they were. But I was already falling, tumbling headfirst into something I didn't understand, and I didn't want to stop. I called him the next day. We had dinner at a restaurant I couldn't pronounce the name of, where the waiters knew him by name, and the other diners watched us with curious eyes. He asked me about my life, my dreams, listened like every word I spoke was precious. When he took me home, he kissed me against my apartment door, slow and thorough, until I forgot my own name. That kiss changed everything. Suddenly, my small, safe life felt suffocating. I wanted more. I wanted him. We fell into a pattern. He would call, and I would drop everything to see him. Dinners, late-night drives, mornings waking up in his penthouse, with the city spread out below us like a toy. He showered me with gifts I couldn't accept, but did anyway. Dresses, jewelry, books I'd mentioned wanting. He was attentive, passionate, possessive in ways that should have scared me. But here's what I didn't know. Here's what he never told me. Dante Salvator wasn't just wealthy. He wasn't just some businessman with old money and good connections. He was the head of the Salvator crime family, one of the 5 families that controlled New York's underworld. Everything he touched was tainted with blood and violence, and I was so blinded by champagne and romance that I never saw it. I found out by accident. 6 weeks into our relationship, I showed up at his office unannounced with lunch, wanting to surprise him. His assistant tried to stop me, but I smiled and said it was fine. I knew the way. I walked in on a meeting I was never supposed to see. Dante sitting behind his massive desk, 3 men kneeling before him, one of them bleeding from a head wound. The gun in Dante's hand looked as natural as a pen. He saw me in the doorway. Something flickered in his eyes, too fast to read. "Isabella," he said calmly, like I hadn't just walked in on something out of a nightmare. "Wait for me in the car." Now, I ran. Down the elevator, through the lobby, into the waiting town car where his driver sat impassively. I was shaking so hard I thought I might fly apart. 20 minutes later, Dante slid into the seat beside me. He didn't try to touch me, just sat there in silence as the car pulled into traffic. "You're scared," he finally said. "I don't blame you, but you need to understand something, Isabella. That world you saw up there, that's my world. It's who I am. I didn't tell you because I wanted you to know me first. Just me. Not the reputation, not the rumors, just Dante. I should have demanded he take me home. Should have ended it right there. But when I looked at him, really looked at him, I saw the same man who had held me on that terrace, who had listened to me talk about Renaissance painting for 3 hours without getting bored, who had kissed me like I was the only woman in the world. "What do you do?" I whispered. "The truth." He told me, all of it. The businesses, legitimate and otherwise. The territories his family controlled. The enemies that wanted him dead. The violence that was as much a part of his life as breathing. He laid it all out, unflinching. And when he was done, he looked at me with those dark eyes and said, "I'll understand if you walk away. I'll hate it, but I'll understand. You didn't sign up for this." I thought about it. God, I really did. Thought about going back to my quiet safe life, pretending I'd never met Dante Salvator. But the truth was, I was already in too deep. I'd tasted something wild and dangerous, and I couldn't unknow it, couldn't unfeel what I felt when he touched me. I'm not walking away, I heard myself say, and the relief that flooded his face made my heart ache. That should have been the end of the story, the moment where I made my choice and lived with the consequences. But this is where things get complicated, where the fairy tale curdles into something darker. Because Dante had enemies, powerful ones, and the moment they realized I mattered to him, I became a target. It started small. A car following me home from work. Strange men in suits lingering outside my apartment building. Dante assigned me a bodyguard, a hulking man named Marco who followed me everywhere and said approximately 3 words a day. I hated it at first, this constant surveillance, but Dante was immovable. You're mine to protect, he said, and there was steel under the softness. Then things escalated. Someone broke into my apartment while I was at work, trashed the place, but didn't take anything. It was a message, a warning. Dante moved me into his penthouse that same night, and I didn't argue. I was terrified, finally understanding the reality of the world I'd stumbled into. He became more protective, more possessive. He wanted to know where I was every moment, who I talked to, what I did. It was suffocating and comforting all at once. I knew he was trying to keep me safe, but I also felt like a bird in a gilded cage, beautiful, but trapped. The night of the Merino Gala, 3 months after that first meeting, Dante told me we had to attend. It was important, he said, political. The Merino family was one of the 5 families, technically allies, but there was tension brewing. Old grievances, new ambitions. He needed to show strength, unity. And he wanted me there beside him. I wore emerald green that night, a dress that clung to every curve, with a slit up the thigh that Dante said was illegal in 12 states. He couldn't stop touching me in the car on the way there, his hand on my knee, my waist, the back of my neck. You're so beautiful, he murmured against my temple. So fucking beautiful. I don't deserve you, principessa. That was the first time he called me that. Principessa. Princess. It should have been silly, melodramatic. But from his lips, it sounded like a prayer. The Merino estate made the Castellano mansion look modest. It was a palace, all marble and gold, with enough security to invade a small country. We were checked at the door, Dante's gun confiscated with practiced efficiency. I noticed he didn't seem concerned, which either meant he trusted the Merinos or he had backup plans I didn't know about. Probably both. The ballroom was packed. Hundreds of people in designer clothes, all of them dangerous in one way or another. Dante kept me close, his hand never leaving my body, marking me as his in front of everyone who mattered. People approached us constantly. Men who wanted to talk business, women who looked at me with envy or pity. I smiled until my face hurt, playing the part of the devoted girlfriend, all while my instincts screamed that something was wrong. Dante felt it too. I could tell by the tension in his shoulders, the way his eyes constantly scanned the room. He was on high alert, expecting trouble. When he excused himself to speak with Antonio Marino, the family head, he had Marco stay with me. Don't leave her side, he told him, and it was an order. But Marco was only human. When someone called him away, claiming an urgent message from Dante, he hesitated only a moment before telling me to stay put and disappearing into the crowd. I stood there alone for maybe 30 seconds before I felt the gun. That's where we started, isn't it? With the cold metal pressed against my ribs, hidden by the crowd and the chaos, with his voice in my ear, calling me principessa like it was my name. You're mine now. Except it wasn't Dante's voice. It took my brain a moment to process that, to understand that the man holding me at gunpoint wasn't the man I loved. I started to turn my head, and the gun pressed harder. Don't, he warned. Don't scream, don't move, don't do anything stupid. We're going to walk out of here nice and calm, and if you cooperate, maybe you get to live through this. My mind was racing. This was a kidnapping. Someone was taking me to get to Dante, to hurt him, and I was powerless to stop it. The man started to steer me toward a side exit, his body close to mine, the gun a constant pressure reminding me not to resist. We passed other guests who smiled and nodded, oblivious to what was happening right in front of them. We were almost to the door when I heard Dante's voice cutting through the noise like a knife. Isabella. Everything stopped. The man behind me went rigid, and I felt real fear radiating off him. Dante was standing maybe 20 feet away, Marco beside him, and both of them looked like death itself. Dante's eyes found mine, and in them I saw fury and terror in equal measure. Let her go, Dante said, his voice deadly calm. Let her go, and maybe I kill you quick. The man laughed, but it was shaky. He pulled me tighter against him. The gun, now visible as people around us, started to notice and back away. You're not in a position to make threats, Salvator. I walk out of here with her, or I paint these nice marble floors with her blood. Your choice. Time seemed to slow down. I could see Dante calculating, weighing options, each one probably involving violence. Marco had his hand inside his jacket, clearly armed despite the security checks. Other men, Dante's men, I assumed, were materializing from the crowd, surrounding us in a loose circle. The Marino's security was also closing in. It was a powder keg, and I was the match. Listen to me, I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. My name is Isabella Chen. I'm nobody. I'm not worth dying over. Just let me go, and nobody has to get hurt. The man holding me made a sound that might have been a laugh. You really don't get it, do you, sweetheart? You became somebody the moment Salvator put his mark on you. You're leverage. You're a message. You're worth everything. Dante took a step forward, hands visible and empty. His face was a mask of control, but I knew him well enough now to see the rage burning underneath. "Name your price," he said. "Money, territory, a favor, whatever you want, it's yours. Just give her back to me." "What I want," the man said, his mouth close to my ear, "is to watch you bleed the way you made my brother bleed. Remember Carlo Benedetti? You put 3 bullets in him last year over some shipment dispute. He was 19 years old, a kid, and you executed him in the street like a dog." The name meant nothing to me, but I saw recognition flash in Dante's eyes. I saw guilt too, just for a second. "This isn't about her," Dante said quietly. "This is about me. So let her go and face me, man to man. No guns, no backup, just you and me, and we settle this the old way." The man seemed to consider it. I could feel his indecision, the war happening inside him between revenge and self-preservation. Then I felt the gun shift slightly, just a fraction of an inch, and I knew this was my only chance. I did something stupid, something I'd seen in movies, but never imagined doing in real life. I threw my head back as hard as I could, connecting with his nose. I felt cartilage crunch, heard him cry out, and the gun went off. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. Someone screamed. I was on the ground, not sure if I was shot, too shocked to feel pain. Then Dante was there, covering me with his body, and chaos erupted around us. Gunfire, shouting, the sound of running feet. I buried my face in his chest and tried to make myself small. It was over in seconds, though it felt like hours. When the shooting stopped and Dante finally let me up, I saw the man who'd grabbed me on the ground, not moving, blood pooling beneath him. Marco was reloading his weapon calmly. Marino's security was everywhere, trying to restore order among the panicking guests. "Are you hurt?" Dante demanded, his hands running over me, checking for wounds. "Isabella, look at me. Are you hurt?" I shook my head, then realized I was shaking all over. He pulled me tight against him, and I felt him trembling too. We stood there in the middle of the carnage, holding onto each other like we were drowning. The aftermath was complicated. Police, questions, statements. The Marinos were furious about the violation of their home, the disruption of their event. Dante spent hours in closed-door meetings, doing damage control, making promises and threats in equal measure. I sat in a side room with Marco, drinking terrible coffee and trying to process what had happened. When Dante finally emerged, he looked exhausted. "Let's go home," he said, and I'd never heard him sound so tired. The drive back to the penthouse was silent. His driver navigated the late-night streets while we sat in the back, not touching, both lost in our own thoughts. I kept replaying the moment I'd felt that gun against my ribs, the moment I'd realized I might die. I'd never been that scared in my life, and I wasn't sure I ever wanted to feel that way again. Inside the penthouse, Dante poured himself 3 fingers of whiskey and downed it in one swallow. Then he poured another and just stared at it. I stood there in my torn dress, my shoes long since abandoned, and waited for him to say something. Finally, he looked at me. "You should leave," he said flatly. "Pack your things and go. I'll set you up somewhere safe, somewhere far from New York. You'll have enough money to start over, and I'll make sure no one ever bothers you again." I blinked at him, not understanding. "What? You almost died tonight, Isabella, because of me, because you're connected to me." That man was right. You became a target the moment I decided I wanted you. And it won't be the last time. There will always be someone trying to get to me through you, always someone wanting to hurt what I love. "So that's it," I said, anger starting to burn through the shock. "You're just going to send me away, make decisions for me like I'm some kind of possession." "I'm trying to protect you," he shot back, his own anger rising to meet mine. "I don't need your protection if it means losing you." I moved closer, got right in his space. "I know what I'm getting into now, Dante. I'm not naive anymore. I understand the risks, the danger, and I'm choosing to stay. Don't I get a say in this?" He looked at me like I was insane. "You're choosing a life where people will try to kill you to hurt me, where you'll never be truly safe, where every day might be your last. Why would you choose that?" "Because I love you," I said simply. The words were out before I could stop them, hanging in the air between us. "I love you, and I'd rather have one day with you, even with all the danger, than a lifetime without you." Something in his expression cracked. He set down the glass and pulled me to him, kissing me with a desperate hunger that bordered on violence. I kissed him back just as fiercely, trying to show him what I couldn't put into words. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. "Say it again," he demanded. "Tell me you love me." "I love you," I whispered. "I love you, Dante Salvator, for better or worse." He rested his forehead against mine, his eyes closed. "I don't deserve you, principessa. I don't deserve your love, your loyalty, your courage. But I'm too selfish to let you go. God help me, I'm too selfish." "Then don't," I said. "Don't let me go. Keep me. Teach me to survive in your world. Make me strong enough to stand beside you." He pulled back to look at me, searching my face for any hint of doubt. What he saw there must have satisfied him, because he nodded slowly. "Okay," he said. "Okay. But this has to be different. No more keeping you in the dark. No more treating you like you're fragile. If you're going to be part of this life, you need to understand all of it. The ugly parts, the dangerous parts, everything. Tell me," I said. "I want to know everything." And he did. We stayed up until dawn while he told me about his world. The history of the 5 families, the territories and businesses, the politics and alliances, the enemies and the friends who might become enemies tomorrow. He showed me guns, taught me how to hold them, how to shoot. He explained the security protocols, the code words, the safe houses. He introduced me to his inner circle, men who swore oaths of loyalty and meant them. It was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. I felt like I was being initiated into some ancient order, learning secrets that could get me killed. But I also felt empowered. For the first time since entering Dante's world, I wasn't just a bystander. I was a participant, making informed choices with my eyes wide open. The weeks following the Merino Gala changed me. I stopped working at the gallery. It was too exposed, too vulnerable. Instead, I started learning the family business from the inside. I sat in on meetings, learned the players, understood the chess game being played across the city. Some of Dante's men resented me at first, saw me as a liability. But I earned their respect by refusing to be coddled, by asking intelligent questions, by proving I could keep my mouth shut and my head down. Dante was different too, more open, more vulnerable. He stopped trying to shield me from the darkness and instead showed me how to navigate it. We became true partners, not just lovers. He valued my opinion, asked for my advice. I helped him see angles he might have missed, brought a fresh perspective to old problems. But living in that world took its toll. I started having nightmares about the gala, about the gun at my ribs. I flinched at loud noises. I couldn't go anywhere without Marco or one of the other guards, couldn't have a moment of privacy. My old friends stopped calling because I was never available, always busy with Dante's world. My family worried about me, sensed something was wrong even though I couldn't tell them the truth. There were moments when I questioned my choice, late nights when Dante came home covered in blood that wasn't his, and I had to help him wash it off. Days when he was gone for hours and wouldn't tell me where, and I had to trust that he would come back. Times when I overheard conversations about violence and death and had to accept that this was my normal now. But there were good moments too. Waking up next to him every morning. The way he looked at me like I was his entire world. The quiet evenings when we pretended to be normal, cooking dinner together and watching old movies. The fierce protectiveness he showed, the way he would move heaven and earth to keep me safe, the love that burned between us, hot enough to melt steel. 6 months after the gala, Dante took me to Italy. We stayed at his family's villa in Tuscany, a sprawling estate that had been in the Salvator family for generations. It was beautiful there, peaceful in a way New York never was. We spent lazy days in the sun, drinking wine and pretending we were just tourists. At night, he made love to me under the stars, and I felt like maybe we could have this. Maybe we could build something real and lasting, despite everything working against us. On our last night in Italy, he took me to a small chapel on the estate grounds. It was ancient, probably older than America itself, with frescoes on the walls and candles flickering in alcoves. We stood there in the dim light, and he took my hands in his. "Isabella Chen," he said formally, "I'm not a good man. I've done terrible things, and I'll probably do more before I die. But you make me want to be better. You make me believe that maybe I'm more than just the violence and the bloodshed. I can't promise you safety. I can't promise you a normal life. But I can promise you this. I will love you with everything I am until my last breath. I will protect you with my life, and I will never, ever take you for granted. He pulled out a ring, not flashy, not ostentatious, just a simple band with a single diamond, elegant and perfect. Marry me, he said. Be my wife, my partner, my principessa. Share this life with me, all of it, the good and the bad. Let me belong to you the way you already belong to me. I was crying, tears streaming down my face, but I was smiling too. Yes, I said. Yes, Dante. 1,000 times yes. He slipped the ring on my finger, and we kissed in that ancient chapel, surrounded by the ghosts of his ancestors. It felt sacred, binding, like we were making vows that went deeper than any legal marriage. In that moment, I knew that whatever happened next, whatever challenges we faced, we would face them together. We got married in Vegas 2 weeks later. It was impulsive, slightly tacky, and absolutely perfect. Just us and Marco as a witness, standing in front of an Elvis impersonator at 3 in the morning. Dante wore jeans and a t-shirt. I wore a white sundress I'd bought at a boutique on the Strip. We laughed through the entire ceremony, giddy with love and lack of sleep. Afterward, we went back to our hotel room and made love as husband and wife for the first time. It felt different, weighted with new meaning. When I fell asleep in his arms, his ring on my finger, and his heart beating under my cheek, I felt complete in a way I never had before. Coming back to New York meant facing reality again. We kept the marriage quiet at first, telling only Dante's inner circle. In our world, a wedding was a political event, and we wanted to enjoy being newlyweds before it became a spectacle. But word eventually leaked, as it always does, and then there were parties and meetings and formal announcements. The other families had mixed reactions. Some saw it as a sign of weakness, Dante tying himself to a civilian with no connections. Others saw opportunity, a chance to forge new alliances or exploit new vulnerabilities. The Marinos sent an elaborate gift and their congratulations. The Benedettis sent nothing, the feud from the gala still simmering. Being Mrs. Salvator changed things. People treated me differently, with more deference and more suspicion. I was no longer just Dante's girlfriend, easily dismissed. I was his wife, which meant I had power and influence, whether I wanted it or not. Women approached me looking for favors, connections. Men watched me carefully, trying to figure out how much I knew, how much I influenced my husband. I learned to navigate these waters, to smile and deflect, and never show my cards. Dante taught me the game, but I had natural instincts for it. I understood people, understood what motivated them. I became his secret weapon in negotiations, reading the room, picking up on subtleties he might miss. But with power came danger. The Benedettis hadn't forgotten about the gala. They'd been quiet, which made Dante nervous. A quiet enemy is a plotting enemy, he told me. We need to be ready for anything. He was right to worry. 8 months into our marriage, they made their move. It was coordinated, brutal, designed to hurt Dante where it would ache most. They hit 3 of his businesses in one night, causing millions in damage. They took out 2 of his top lieutenants, and they came for me. I was at the penthouse, working on some paperwork for one of Dante's legitimate businesses, when the power went out. Marco was with me as always, and he immediately went on high alert. "Stay here," he commanded, drawing his weapon. "Don't move." He went to check the breaker, and that's when they came through the windows. 3 men, heavily armed, moving with military precision. Marco got one, but there were too many. I heard him go down, heard the thud of his body hitting the floor, and terror turned my blood to ice. I did the only thing I could think of. I ran through the penthouse toward the panic room Dante had installed, but I'd never thought I'd need. Behind me, I could hear them coming, their heavy footsteps, their shouted commands. The panic room was at the end of the hall, behind a hidden panel in the wall. I'd practiced opening it before, but my hands were shaking so badly I couldn't make my fingers work. They were right behind me when I finally got it open. I threw myself inside and hit the button to seal the door. It slid shut just as they reached it, and I heard them pounding on the reinforced steel, screaming threats. The room was small, windowless, with enough supplies to last a week and a direct line to Dante. I grabbed the phone with trembling hands. He answered on the first ring. "Isabella." "They're here," I gasped out. "They killed Marco. They're trying to get in." "Dante, I'm in the panic room, but I don't know how long it will hold." The sound he made was inhuman. "Stay there," he said, his voice deadly. "Don't open that door for anyone but me. I'm 10 minutes away." 10 minutes, principessa. Hold on. Those were the longest 10 minutes of my life. I sat on the floor with my knees pulled to my chest, listening to them, trying to break through. They brought tools, tried to cut through the door. I could hear them arguing, debating whether to wait or to leave before Dante arrived. Eventually, they must have decided the latter because the noise stopped. When Dante finally opened the door, I launched myself at him. He caught me, held me so tight I couldn't breathe. "You're okay," he kept saying over and over. "You're okay. You're safe. I've got you." Marco was dead. They'd shot him 3 times in the chest. Dante stood over his body with an expression I'd never seen before, something beyond rage. Marco had been with him for 15 years, more than an employee, a friend, and he'd died protecting me. The war that followed was brutal. Dante went after the Benedettis with everything he had, no mercy, no hesitation. I watched him transform into someone I barely recognized, cold and ruthless and absolutely terrifying. He burned their businesses to the ground. He turned their allies against them. He hunted them through the streets of New York like prey. I should have been horrified, should have been repulsed by the violence. But I wasn't. They'd tried to kill me. They'd succeeded in killing Marco, and Dante was making them pay for it. There was something primal in me that rejoiced in his vengeance. that felt satisfaction when I heard about their losses. It took 3 weeks, but eventually the Benedetti family sued for peace. They'd been decimated, their leadership in hiding or dead. Antonio Marino brokered the meeting, neutral ground, everyone's weapons checked at the door. I went with Dante, stood beside him as he faced what was left of the family that had tried to kill his wife. "You took something from me," Dante said to Giuseppe Benedetti, the aging patriarch who'd been forced out of retirement to salvage what was left of his family. "You killed one of my best men. You terrorized my wife. You brought war to my door. Give me one good reason I shouldn't finish what I started and wipe your family off the map." Giuseppe was old, probably 70, but his eyes were sharp. "Because enough blood has been spilled," he said, "because this started with my nephew's vendetta over his brother, and that nephew is dead now by your hand. Because the families need peace more than they need revenge. And because I'm here to offer you something better than more death." "What could you possibly offer me," Dante asked, "that would make up for what you've done?" "Information," Giuseppe said, "about the Rosses. They're planning a move against you, using our war as a distraction. They've been buying up territory, making alliances. They want your crown, Salvator, and they're closer to taking it than you realize. The Rosses were the largest of the 5 families, the most powerful. If they were moving against Dante, it changed everything." He looked at Giuseppe for a long moment, weighing the truth of his words. Finally, he nodded. "A truce, then. But your family owes me a blood debt. When I call it in, you pay it. No questions, no hesitation." "Agreed, agreed," Giuseppe said, and just like that, the war was over. But the threat from the Rosses was real. Over the next months, Dante worked to shore up his position. He made new alliances, strengthened old ones. He brought me deeper into the business, valuing my insights and instincts. Together, we built a network of loyalty and power that could withstand almost anything. Almost, because in our world, peace is always temporary. Violence is always just beneath the surface, waiting for an excuse to break free. We lived with that knowledge, accepted it as the price of the life we'd chosen, and when the Rosses finally made their move, we were ready. But that's a story for another time. Tonight, I'm standing on our balcony, looking out at the city lights, with Dante's arms wrapped around me from behind. His hand rests on my stomach, where our child is growing, a secret we've only just learned. New life in a world of death, hope in the darkness. "You okay, principessa?" He murmurs against my neck. "I'm perfect," I tell him, and I mean it. Despite everything, despite all the danger and violence and fear, I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. With him. In this life we've built together. He turns me to face him, and in the dim light from the city, I can see love and wonder in his eyes. "We're going to be parents," he says, like he still can't quite believe it. "We are," I confirm, smiling. "Are you scared, terrified?" he admits. "What if I'm not good at it? What if I pass on all my darkness to this kid? What if I can't protect them the way I should? I cup his face in my hands. You'll be amazing, I tell him, because you'll love them the way you love me. Fiercely, completely, without reservation. That's all any child needs. He kisses me then, soft and sweet, full of promise. And I know that whatever comes next, whatever threats emerge, whatever battles we have to fight, we'll face them together, because I'm no longer the girl who felt cold metal against her ribs at a gala. I'm Mrs. Dante Salvator. I'm a survivor. I'm a fighter. And I'm exactly where I belong.